Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Cara. This is, I guess, Unleash Your Light. I'm so excited to be here today. Those of you who know me, those of you who have been following know that I dropped off the page at the end of February. Hello there, welcome. I jumped off the page at the end of February. The universe said, you know what? Do nothing. Do nothing, step back, do nothing. So I have done nothing. It's not that I've done nothing, but I haven't done live shows. I've made a couple of two videos that I've posted. I did a little tarot read. But I got the nudge real strong this morning to come on and to chat with you about what's been going on, to come on and share with you those things that the universe has been talking to me about. I don't know if they're talking to you about the same thing. I believe they are. I believe that the universe is working in cycles, and we're all kind of, many of us who are awake are on that same cycle. So it's super exciting to be a part of what is going on now, to be a part of this awakening in its new form, I suppose. I'm not really sure how to refer to it, but that's okay. No big deal. However I talk about it, I talk about it. If y'all know me, you know I really don't care about semantics. It does not matter one little bit to me. So I hope that everything has been great for you guys. I'm super excited to be here, like I said. So let's just jump right in. I don't think anybody's watching, but I don't really care. Y'all know. For those of you who know, I've been doing live shows on Facebook since January of 2017. Literally, I got a nudge from a particular person who said, just do it. Come on my group and do it. And I did it. And even though I'm no longer in that group or, broadcasting in that group, I have continued broadcasting Unleash Your Light pretty much continuously, sometimes 2 to 5 times a week since January of 2017. On that journey, I have been struggling in my personal life. I've had some crazy stuff go on. I was living through a separation. I was on my own for the very first time, raising my son. I had some crazy awakenings, some crazy gifts come online. I've had some weird downloads. I've, been struggling physically with my own physical form. I was diagnosed back, 2012, 2013, officially with idiopathic small fiber neuropathy, and since then it has developed into multiple other things along with just my normal stuff. But I say all that to say this. The title of this is Intuition, Fear, Ego, and How Can We Make Change in Our Lives? Now, y'all know, if y'all know me, still same old G, that I always talk about unconditional love, that I always talk about going within, that I always talk about this space where we connect with the divine that's within us. If you see my little thing back here, this is the book that I wrote, Unleash Your Light, Access the Divine Within. And that really talks about connecting with that piece of the light, God, Fred, it doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you are seeking, and connecting with that space within each one of us that is connected to the collective, to the whole. This is made very difficult by the layers of human experience that each of us go through. So those things that I have focused on in my own journey is what I share with you, and those things that the universe asks me to share with all of you, which is stuff like being kind to ourselves, learning to love ourselves, forgiveness, forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, setting our mind, having faith, ignoring our feelings. And I don't mean like our feelings, but if y'all know me, you've heard me talk about this a million times. I mean that primal place of pain that is created from the experiences that we have as a human. So I say all that to get to this next space that we're in. The next space that we come to in this journey, or that I have come to in this journey, like I said, they told me to quit everything. Quit everything. Don't do nothing. Don't do shows. Don't do nothing. Sit, write. I don't really write because my brain doesn't work as well as it used to, so I have a hard time making words. Hi, Vicky. So I dictate, and then my wonderful 17-year-old about to graduate high school son will transcribe for me those things that I speak. But I had this epiphany. I had this space of change that happened to me on a core level. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you guys about. It's kind of what I want to share with you. And I put up a little post yesterday. I haven't put up very much. The universe has been giving me nudges. The universe has been showing me things and talking to me and telling me about the future and telling me about possible future outcomes and nudging me, post this, post this, post this. Okay. So yesterday I posted something about sometimes the answer is so simple that we are literally choosing not to see it. And I can certainly say in my own life that this applied. And y'all know that's all I'm doing is I am literally sharing my journey with you. I'm not trying to tell you how to live. Don't be offended. I'm not calling none of y'all out. Okay, whatever I'm talking about my own personal experience through that and sharing that. So when I took this moment of silence, when I took this time out, first thing I did was nothing. Like nothing for an entire month. And then the universe said, go on, make a video, talk about leaving. So I did that. If y'all want to find it, you can scroll down a little bit on my page here or go to my YouTube channel. It's there. In that silence. So when I stopped doing everything, the first thing that I recognized was that nothing happened. Like nothing bad happened. The world didn't stop spinning. The interesting thing was that nobody noticed. Which I find hysterical because I literally would post 1, 2, 3 times a day on 2 or 3 different pages of mine and take, an hour or two making brand new pictures, making new images, creating new little memes and all of this stuff, putting so much effort into it. Nobody noticed when I was gone. Not a single person. And it was a very interesting thing. Now, at that point, I had a choice, of course. I could have gone into my abandonment issues, into my personal pain, into my space of feeling unworthy of friendship, feeling unworthy of that sort of thing. I could have done that. I could have, but I didn't. In fact, I wasn't even tempted to do it. I had a little bit of annoyance. I was a little bit annoyed, but honestly, I didn't feel some type of way about it. And I really had gone into this expecting to feel some type of way about it. Now, where does that expectation comes from? It comes from the life that I've lived. It comes from a pattern in my life of people coming in and people leaving and never giving me a second thought. It comes from these patterns of abandonment as a baby, thinking, feeling unloved. All of this culminates in this space where when I stopped doing this and nobody reached out to me, I expected to go back into my deep dark hole of, sadness, depression, whatever it is. But none of that happened, see? And I was very surprised, although slightly annoyed, but I was very surprised by that. That space, that expectation that I had was created from my ego. Now, a lot of people use the word ego and throw it around. I'm going to tell you what I think ego is, okay? Ego is like our shield. It's like our armor. It's like our protection, right? So the expected response for me of being sad, being upset, saying to myself, oh, that's because nobody cares about you. You don't deserve to have any friends anyways. You're a horrible person. You're too much. You overpower everyone in your life. All of those things, whether true or not, are beliefs that my ego fed because it supported a particular version of myself that I saw, that I believed was real. Okay? So that ego, even though we think that it's about being strong, like I'm not going to let anybody do that to me, I just won't let anyone close, I just won't let anybody in. What it's really doing is protecting our hearts, right? So that we don't get hurt. Or supporting our hearts if we think poorly about ourselves, if we are hating ourselves, if we are believing these things about ourselves. So the ego is really set up to be anti-intuitive, anti-open-hearted, anti-expanded, anti-self-aware. The ego, while it does serve a purpose, also serves to keep us away from experience, from life, from the ups and the downs, right? The ego kind of hijacks the experience and colors it to the color that we already perceive to be us. The ego can take any interaction and turn it into what we expect. And we've discussed this before several times on the show. Welcome to anyone who's come in. We've discussed this many times on the show about how our perception is often not what's actually happening in the world. If we believe that people are out to get us, and we see two people across the room leaning in and whispering, and we have a perception that the world is out to get us, our ego jumps into play and says, look at those people talking about you. And then depending on your tick, depending on if you are more on the way of self-loathing or more on the way of projective loathing, then you will either say, they're talking about me because I'm horrible and I'm ugly and there's obviously something wrong with me, and here, wait, let me fix my shirt. Or you say, they're jealous and they're just haters. And you might go into the opposite, right? But that comes from ego, right? Honestly, they might not be talking about you at all, right? Honestly, they might be saying something nice about you. Honestly, they probably have not even noticed that you exist on the other side of the room. But our ego jumps into action based on the life experiences that we have led. Now, what does this do? I don't know if y'all heard that. That's my jaw. I have a little issue with my jaw. Where does this take us? That ego will keep us stuck in the human experience of pain, in our human suffering. It stops us from actually intuitively connecting from the heart, from the space that is connected to divine, from that energy source that we all share, that we are all a part of, right? And if I'm able to sit in my intuition, I can look at them whispering at each other. And I am them. And I am them whispering to each other. And maybe I am saying bad stuff about me, right? Because what we are perceiving is how we feel about the world often, is how we see the world. So we see that over there, and if we're thinking they're talking about me, well, maybe you think everyone talks about you, but that may not be real. And if it is real, who cares, right? Why does it matter what they're saying about you over there? But that ego wants to make sure that we can stay in charge, in control, or that we can stay pushed down, which is also a form of control. That inner pain, that inner depression, that inner sadness is a form of control. It is a form of control from the universe. Because if we can control our own pain, if we can control our perceptions of the world, then we don't have to surrender to the experience of the universe. If our ego stays in place, if our ego continues to protect us from the spears and the javelins and the pain that other people want to give us or that we perceive is coming towards us, then we don't have to connect with our intuition. We think that the ego is our intuition. We think that that protective shield is part of our intuition to protect ourselves, much like an empath. So when I first discovered that I was an empath when actually the universe told me, and I didn't know what that word was. I said, what's an empath? I had to use the Google and look it up. I learned the technique to bubble up, and I've said it before. Anyone who's a baby empath, learn to bubble up. And for me, it's like a beautiful bubble that allows love in and out, but doesn't allow other people's pain. I can observe without absorbing, right? I can observe the pain without absorbing the pain. Come on, lips. So I learned that technique at the very beginning, and it served me very, very well for years. But what I discovered was that bubble was passive. It was passive protection. And the universe said, nah, that's not what you're meant to do. You are an amplifier. Now, they've only recently given me this term of being an amplifier, although I've used it in the past. It has really come into my existence, like my space of being, since I went off of all of these social media things. Being an amplifier means that I am amplifying my own energy and sending it out, like turning up the volume on a radio, right? So if I'm always broadcasting, then that I am broadcasting has to be unconditional love. I have to pay attention to that. And I've spoken about this many times in my Be Nice to Yourself videos, where I talk about how even when we're just walking around the grocery store or out in the world, we are broadcasting our thoughts and our energy to everyone around us, because they're all tuned in to the same frequency that we're tuned into, to the universe. And because of that, they are receiving. And that's one of the things about empaths, is that empaths are always receiving those broadcasts from the radio towers or people around them, right? So that space of receiving the broadcast from others and pushing it out like a radio broadcast, each of us who is awake is an amplifier to that energy. Our ego gets in the way of that clear amplification because it changes our perception of the world based on the lifetime that we have led, based on the beliefs that we have in our head, right? So because of that, it is constantly at odds with the concept that we are creating the world around us, that we are manifesting the life that we're leading. The ego gets in the way. The ego creates a protective barrier between us and the experiences that some of us need to have so that we can become that amplifier unfettered. Turned up to 11. If y'all watch Spinal Tap, you know what I'm talking about. So I said all that to lead to this. In the silence, after stepping off of the social media stuff, I had a very interesting experience. So as I said, I struggled with mobility and all of these physical issues. And I had created a blockage in my own life based on the life that I had led, based on the things that doctors had said to me, based on the way that my body felt, okay? And through that perception and that ego space, I was literally making a choice without making a choice. The ego was protecting me from pain, both physical and emotional. It was protecting me from failure. It was protecting me from hurting. It was protecting me from whatever it perceived as dangers coming to me from external sources. Excuse me. And it was literally stopping me in my tracks. The ego was generating or working with my fear. And I had a lot of them. Even after we're in 2021. I woke up in 2012. So even after 8.5 years, 9 years of work, of struggling, of digging into this stuff, of doing all the things, all the spiritual things, right? So even after years of that, I was still buying in to this perception of myself that was based on my ego, that was fueled by my fear. Fueled by my fear. So fear of falling, fear of getting hurt, fear of being out and something happening to me, fear of, who's going to take care of my kid. And I spoke about this a little bit on the other video, that this is the first time in my life where I am only responsible for me. My son is going to be 18 any day now. Well, August. It's not really any day now. It feels like any day now. He's my last one. My oldest is 31. So this space of sovereign, this space of looking at a future that's empty, because I don't have a husband anymore after 20-something years, this space of fear that I was sitting in was literally paralyzing me in so many ways. And that was that ego trying to protect me, trying to keep me from getting hurt. It's doing its job. It's trying to keep me from getting eaten by the bear. But there's literally no bear. It creates a response in us that freezes us, that keeps us from taking the action that actually creates change. Because change is scary. Because change is scary, and we don't know what happens on the other side of change. And that prevents so many people from actually taking a step. One of the things that 2020 was so good at for so many people was helping them to recognize the space in their life where they wanted to change, and then forcing, and maybe they already knew that, a lot of them, and then forcing them to take a step into that change by shutting down workplaces and whatever, separating people from work groups and separating people from dysfunctional families, right? It really gave people a push, some people, not all people, into another stage of their life that they had feared making that step into, or that their ego was telling them not to. You can't succeed at that. You won't be able to do that. This is going to turn out like that thing in the past. Remember that thing and you were a wreck and we had to nurse you back to health? That thing is going to happen again if you take this step. Our ego is there every step of the way to try to tell us why we're not going to be successful. Now, some people think of ego as arrogance. I'm not talking about ego in that way. That's not how the universe defines ego to me, but even arrogance is a form of protection and control that keeps us from surrendering to the will of the universe, which is us. The will of the universe is our will. The will of the universe is us wanting to see the world in a particular way. So if we push this outwards, the will of the universe is us and how we view the world. How do you view the world? What do you see when you look out there? And how do you react to the things that are physically there that you see? What road does it take you down? Do you go to a place of anger, of injustice, of blame, of demonization? Right? Looking at other people and saying, that's a horrible person. That person should be shot. Or that person needs to be punished. When we allow, that's ego, reacting to fear. That's ego combined with our personal fear. When we allow the ego, that place of self-protection, to be the thing that guides us, we are blocked from our intuition, or we don't recognize that our intuition wants to speak to us, wants to lead us, wants to talk to us, wants us to see that differently, wants us to share in a different way, wants us to see ourselves from a different space. For me personally, I stepped into a space of gratitude, which I had already thought I was in, but there were things in my life that I refused to surrender to. And there were things in my life that I thought I had to fight against. But when I took a breath and just allowed whatever was happening to happen and looked at it from that space of unconditional love, put myself in the observer position as if I was one of my own guides, which, if you're a person who believes in the higher self, however you would like to word it, we are always watching ourselves. We are always observing ourselves, whether it is from the now or whether it is us from the future, because all time happens all the time, observing the life that we led after the fact, after we have left this human form. Looking at the world from that perspective shifts everything. Looking at the world as this huge gift shifts everything. And I was shown or led to a space in myself that was not in myself. And it's a little hard to put into words, and that's because there is a space beyond words. And people do meditation for hours and hours and hours to get to that space beyond words, beyond where we're trying to explain with our human mind and put into a human context our connection, our feeling of God, our understanding of the God within us, the light within us, okay? We're always trying to put it into words. And especially those of us who yap, yap, yap. I'm a yap, yap, yapper. Yap, yap, yap. That's me. So I'm always, even as I'm having an amazing experience, I am thinking words. I am thinking words while I'm having that experience to describe how I feel. Oh, this feels amazing. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, I feel the light on my skin. Oh, I can feel God within me. Oh, I feel the tingle, whatever it is. Stepping past that into the pure, like, telepathic, while awake, while doing stuff, while out in the world, kind of clicked something for me. And I've gotten to what I thought was that place in meditation, I don't like to call it meditation because I don't really know how to do it. I just sit real still, and just, like think nothing. But this was literally, because of my physical stuff, I have avoided physical stuff because it hurts, because I walk with a cane, because I have problems. It's painful. It's always been very painful. And it had gotten worse and worse and worse. And I was really to the point where I was just barely getting around. And it was really difficult for me to do anything. I had this moment where I just went, fuck it. Fuck it. I'm just going to do this. Sometimes the change that we need, sometimes the solution to our problem is so simple that we refuse to see it. And literally, the day that I went out for my first walk around the block, the universe revealed itself to me, like it was waiting for me to choose life. And everything changed. And not only did I have this incredible melding, integration with that unique energy of the universe, not only did I have this transformative experience, all of my fear disappeared. All of my fears, which was the weirdest feeling because I had a lot of them, I had a lot of them. I was scared of being alone for the rest of my life. I was scared of flying. I'm scared of dogs. I'm scared of spiders, I'm scared of falling. I'm scared of, being somewhere and not having anyone to help me. Just this space of fear, so much of it that my ego had reasoned out into, this is being cautious and we have to be careful, and we're trying to take care of our bodies by not going out, by not walking in this way, by not bringing ourselves out into the world. We're taking care of ourselves. But the ego was combined with my fear, and it was lying to me. Even though it didn't know it was lying, it really thought it was protecting me. Like the mother that cuts you down, or the drill sergeant that yells at you and tears you down because they're trying to make you tough, right? This ego was literally telling me things that were not true. And I had no idea. And the answer was just as simple as stepping past it. Stepping over the log in the road that was trying to stop me from rolling forward. It was a very interesting experience and a very interesting shift in everything that's going on in my life. A very interesting transformation into this next phase, whatever it's going to be. I have no idea what it's going to be. The universe shows me scenarios based on my actions, based on the actions of others, on the free will of other people who choose or don't choose to come in and make a union, to create something bigger, to become an amplifier that is bigger than just me being online, but rather this amplifier that explodes, right? And even in the Bible, they say something about where two gather, I will be. There was a space steeped in fear and control that was stopping me from surrendering to surrender. As much as I thought I had done, as hard as I thought I had worked, as much energy as I had put into being a particular way, when I stripped everything back, when I let go of that need to control, which I hadn't even recognized in myself, it was like taking off the blinders. It was like taking off, red glasses, and the whole world was a different color. The whole world looks different. People look different. Situations look different. It's been so fascinating. Those spaces that we have created, these walls that our ego creates in us, combined with fear, I ask you to look at those spaces where you think you're protecting yourself. To look at those spaces where you think you are being helped, where you are being protected. Examine them closely. Are they based on things from your past? Are they based on experiences that you've had before? Or are you truly experiencing what's coming to you free and clear with a clean slate? It's a very fascinating thing to watch, and I'm noticing my own preconceived notions of things drifting away because of going into them aware that my ego/fear is going to try to do this. Is going to try to make me see things in a way that protects me or allows me to maintain a level of control. The ego wants us to be right, whether we are thinking good things about ourselves or whether we are thinking bad things about ourselves. The ego wants us to be right, whether we are thinking good things about other people or whether we are thinking bad things about people. And we've said it many times. There may be bad stuff going on over there. Somebody might be doing stuff to you. Somebody might be talking shit about you. Somebody might be jealous of you, mad at you, feeling some type of way about you. That's their experience. It is up to each one of us to be accountable for our part in it. And that's part of what the ego steps into also, is that we're right. I want to be right. There's duality in everything, and yet the space of non-duality, where you can be both things at once, is this transformative space. It literally changes the way that you see everything. It makes you start to rethink every preconceived notion that you have learned. Every lesson that I have learned in my 50 years on this planet, I'm now kind of looking sideways at, like, is that really what's going on? Is that really how this is working? It's just such an interesting thing to step into that space. And it all came from the moment beyond words. From that space where I was no longer trying to put words, I didn't need any words. I've said this in a previous video, one of the ones that I made, I only made 2 in the last 3 months. That space of non-thinking, that space beyond words, is one of the reasons why things like blood magic and sex magic are so effective in manifesting and creating. Because the adrenaline rush, the physical response to those things, kind of erases words. It erases words, which is what makes those moments so powerful when we are focusing on manifestation before and after them and as the intention, right? But what if you could do that without that adrenaline rush, without that physical response or physical space being created? This is the space of the unconditional love, the pure form of unconditional love. Once we take down the protective shield that the fear and the ego create, once we recognize our space of both duality and non-duality, I am everyone and I am no one. I am everything and I am nothing. When you are all of that in one, it literally shifts the way that you see everything. That's awesome. The new perspective on the old perspective. I love that. That's a great way to say it. There's a space of surrendering to the surrender. It is stepping beyond fear. And I had no idea. I knew that I had fears, but I thought I had worked so hard, and I had no idea how many of them I still had. And now it's funny because, okay, I'll tell you a little story. I'm terrified of spiders. And I'll tell you my backstory. The reason I'm terrified of spiders is because when I was a little kid, we would go visit my grandparents, and they had daddy long legs all over their house where they lived. And those things, I don't know if you've ever seen a daddy long leg. Their body is little, and they have legs that they're this big around with their long skinny legs, right? And I know they don't make nests, or they don't make webs, and they don't jump. But to me as a child, they were terrifying. And they would move themselves under the door handle. So I would tell my mother at 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, the whole time we were going out to visit my grandparents, I would say to my mother, I need to pee, I need to go in the house. And she would say, go ahead. I'm like, but there's spiders on the door. She's like, I don't care. Go in. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to bite you. There was just a level of glee in my fear for her. And I was terrified. And I would literally, when I was real little, I would pee my pants because I was so scared of these spiders. And I maintained this fear over and over again. Now, I'm sitting in this space of not being afraid anymore. I'm scared of dogs. I got bit on the face when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, so I'm terrified of dogs. But I've had now several dogs come up and snuffle me, people that walk their dogs in the neighborhood, and I expected to freeze up, and there was nothing. Yesterday, I walked my cat every morning. Yes, I walked my cat. And so as we were coming back in, or about to come back in, I put my hand on the door to open it and felt something touching me, like, you know, like a little, I thought it was like a leaf or something. And I look up and there is a daddy long legs about that big that I had stuck my finger into him all curled up, and he was now walking and spreading out. And normally that would have caused me to scream at the top of my lungs, to freak the fuck out. I probably would have gone around to the front, scooped up the cat and brought him around to the front door to come in, which really would have confused him because he's real old and he would not know how the heck do we get back in the house. But I didn't have that reaction. I started to. It was like my fear and my ego started to have myself, my body, react as it always had. But the space that I was in, where my fears had been dropped, I kind of went, oh, I'm not scared of that anymore. Wow, I'm not scared of that anymore. I just stuck my finger into the twisted little legs of a spider. I'm not scared. It was a very interesting, very literal translation of the space of sovereignty and freedom that I feel after letting go of my fear. See? Richard was afraid of snakes, so you held on to one. Absolutely. That's actually one of those things. There used to be this show, I don't remember the name of it, but they used to take people who had these like extreme fears and do that kind of therapy on them, immersion therapy or whatever you want to call it. I could never have done that or reacted that way if this hadn't happened. I'm 50. I have carried this fear with me my entire life, and people might say, oh, it's smart to be scared of snakes. It's smart to be scared. You're protecting yourself. You're keeping yourself from getting hurt. And yet, we're also keeping ourselves from experience. We're also keeping ourselves from surrender. It is a form of control when the ego and our fears feed each other. And the ego and the fear feeding each other is basically that story of the two wolves, right? Which wolf are you going to feed? The one that's, anger and, hatred and loathing, or are you going to feed the kind and gentle one? And a lot of people will feed the one that bites, will feed the angry one, because they're protecting themselves, because that's the wolf that destroys other people when they hurt them. That's the wolf that keeps them from stepping into situations where they might get hurt, right? So I say all that not to tell you not to listen to your intuition, but rather to have you take a look at whether it is truly your intuition or whether it is your ego telling you something based on protective self-defense mechanisms that were formed from experiences that you've had throughout your life. And how much are we keeping ourselves from by listening to that part? How much are we stopping ourselves from? Can't catch me. I'm a gingerbread man. Oh my goodness. It's just been a really fascinating thing. So in our own lives, as we move forward, as I said, yesterday I put up a post that said sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, and we stop ourselves from choosing it. If you had a fight with someone and you don't know how they feel about you, our ego stops us from reaching out and finding out where they are, finding out how they feel, because it's protecting us from being hurt by that person, right? If you are hating the job you're in, or you don't like the town you live in, why don't you make a change? Because we are afraid of what comes after the change. We have fear of the unknown. We don't have faith in what the universe is bringing us next. It's a very fine balance between that space, right? It's a very fine balance between protecting ourselves and allowing ourselves to have experiences. Yes, to experience the journey. I've talked about that a lot, Richard. It's fascinating because so many of our fears, we don't even recognize we have them until we're faced with them. But if we don't allow ourselves to step into situations where we might be confronted with our fear, then we're never able to overcome it. If you hadn't stepped into the space, into an opportunity to touch a snake, you may have never overcome your fear of the snake. Because your ego would have been like, nah, I'm good. I'm not doing that, right? Maybe because you might have thought people are going to look at you funny if you make a noise, or someone's going to judge you. Like, there's a lot of reasons why people keep their ego in check. Like, when I say in check, I don't mean like holding it back, but they allow it to take the lead because the ego protects them. It's like walking around with a giant Rottweiler that's trying to bite everyone, right? It's protective. And to allow ourselves to step through life vulnerable, to allow ourselves to step through life, like you said, embracing what comes towards us, recognizing and having faith that the universe is giving us this, even if it seems like a terrible experience. Surrendering to surrender, allowing the universe to bring in whatever it's going to bring in. Because you have to think about the fact that if your ego and your fear is protecting you from things that you think are scary, what else is it blocking? What else is it keeping you from doing? Do you have a hidden fear that success might be scary? Do you have a hidden fear of losing things that you may gain? Do you have a fear that people will always walk out on you? All of these things are like usually buried pretty deep. It takes a lot of digging to get to them. So what is our ego protecting us from that we might not even recognize? What experiences is the ego stopping the universe from presenting to us? This is where the change comes from. This is where the change in our life comes from, by stepping into that observer position, by embracing that unconditional love that we have within us, and really allowing that to be our guide. Having that faith that whatever is happening to us is happening for us. That whatever we are seeing is happening so that we can grow, so that we can expand. And it is what we choose in that moment that determines what is coming next. I've said it many times. What happened then got you here. What you do now gets you there. So what does there look like? Change is God. I'm reading a book right now called The Parable of the Sower. Amazing book. It was written by Octavia Butler back in the 80s. She was an African-American science fiction writer in the 80s. Talk about like a rare bird, okay? God is change. The universe is change. And these experiences that the universe brings us, or that the universe wants to bring us, is for our development. If we look back on our lives, where would we have been if we did not allow the ego to stop us from stepping into certain situations? If we didn't allow it to protect us from things that it thought was scary, or from things that our past experiences had trained it to believe were scary. Absolutely. I am now at a space where I'm like, bring it on. I am ready to face the world. I want to go out, do all the things. And this was from someone who was so scared to go out by myself in the evenings. I was basing that on the life that I had led, on the way that I had grown up, on the things that were said to me when I was a child. Someone's going to drag you off in the bushes and, do the R thing to you. Not that anyone's interested in doing that in the moment. But all of these spaces that were blocked from me, supposedly to protect me. It's up to each one of us. We all have our own free will to do this. You have to want change. You have to want change. When I do my tarot readings, the thing that comes up over and over again is we have a certain picture of what we think our life should look like, right? We have a certain picture. And then we know what our life now looks like. But to get to that certain picture, it's very obvious that where we are now has to change. And that is scary. And our ego will stop us from doing that, because even hell is a familiar hell. And so many of us will choose to stay in a familiar hell rather than step into unfamiliar heaven. And of course, I'm just picking words. Don't get stuck on hell and heaven and all that kind of stuff, y'all. So I challenge all of you. I say to all of you, these are the moments. This is the time. There is a huge actual energetic shift that is supporting you releasing your fears. Absolutely, 100%. Beautiful trauma. The universe is supporting us right now, stepping into that new way of thinking, dropping the ego, dropping the shield, dropping the fear, that the protection that our fear has built, because it feeds on each other. It is supporting us revealing our vulnerability. It is supporting us stepping into things without a safety net. It is supporting the journey of the fool. The new journey, stepping out without all of the preconceived notions that we have gathered throughout all of our years of life, through my 50 years of life. I am letting go of all of that and stepping into a new space of a blank slate. And it is amazing. When I first separated from my ex in 2015, I was terrified. Nice to meet you, Richard. I was terrified of a blank future. I had been with this person for 20-something years. I was terrified of that blank canvas. As exciting as it was to step into a new space, I was so scared to put my paintbrush on the canvas and to actually build something, that I spent a lot of time cleaning my brushes and mixing paint. Now, there's nothing wrong with cleaning brushes and mixing paint, but at some point, you got to put your brush to the canvas. And I feel like I'm putting the brush to the canvas finally. It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. And I have no idea where Unleash Your Light is going to take me. I want to tour. The universe is telling me that, a traveling show, music, going all over the country and speaking and sharing and connecting with people. They've told me that for years. And I always kind of work towards it without actually, I don't know that I ever believed it was really going to happen. But I have faith in the universe. And whether that is a thing that happens or not, I have faith that whatever they bring me is going to be exactly what I need. Because I didn't take the journey in the way that they asked me to back then. I did what I could. But now I hear the voice so clearly. I hear the nudges so clearly. I see the synchronicities. I see the way things line up. I'm getting the signs from the universe so much more clearly. And every day that I recognize, acknowledge, kiss my fear and let it go. That's it. That's I feel like a different person. The brush is your map. I love that. I feel like a different person, and yet I have never felt more me than since I still had no fear, like at age 15. When you feel invincible as a teenager, when you feel like you're unstoppable. For some people, it's in their teens. For some people, it's when they're 8 or 9. It all depends on the life you've had. There's been at least one moment in our life where we felt unstoppable. That's how I feel. All the time. Not just when I'm standing on a mountaintop. Not just when I'm meditating. Just all the time. And it is transformative. That is the change. That is the change. I'm so grateful, y'all, that I got to come on here and chat with you guys. It was very nice meeting you, Richard. Everyone else that was here. I'm just super grateful. I'm super grateful. And again, if y'all want to visit unleashyourlight.org, I have free books there now. I've been uploading free spiritual books. So like I can never say it right, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad. There's a book on shamanism. There's all kinds of books on it. I have a friend who's from Oklahoma too. His name is JJ. The reason I know he's from Oklahoma is because he would tell me about Rocklahoma that him and his brother would go to every year. Rocklahoma. And he would say, it's the best concert. It's the best time. It's the best of everything. All right, y'all. I'm signing off. As we said, it's been a minute since I've been on here. I don't know when I'm coming back. It might be regular. It might be never. I have no idea. I'm trying to do what the universe is telling me to do. I'm open. I'm excited. And by the way, since I made my change, some of you who know me, who've seen me, might notice that I look a little bit different. So let's just say that my dropping my fear of my physical self has shifted a lot of physical things in me that I am so grateful for. I'm grateful for every one of you. Like I said, you private message me, Richard. You're certainly welcome to reach out. And I will see you guys whenever. Oh, by the way, y'all, we've had a little co-host for this entire show. This is not my usual co-host. This one is Gur. And she's actually my daughter's cat. So my daughter got her when she was 18 years old. So that would have been 11 years ago. So she's the oldest kitty that I had. She likes to sit. It's good for her to hide there because the other cats like to chase her around. She's kind of a victim. I feel real bad for her. Anyways, I love you guys. I'm grateful. And I will see you, I don't know, whenever. Have a fabulous life. Reach out to me anytime. Anytime.